All right. What is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to discuss the latest off-season news and rumors going on in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that will be live recorded every single week. We'll get into that in a second and some more info on that. But for those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn those post notifications on to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, we love reading your comments, your questions, your concerns, all that great stuff. If you feel like you're being ignored, you're not being ignored, just being starred throughout the show. We'll try to pull up as many as we can to keep the flow of the conversation going. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok for some more content over there during the offseason. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 174 of our show. And technically, this episode is our first technically 2026 off-season episode, let's just say that. And these are more once a week than twice a week, obviously, because they're no longer playing games, even though they could have been playing games in October, but they decided, no, we're not going to play great baseball. So we are doing off-season content a little bit earlier than we probably expected to going into this season. But Andrew, that means that you're back in your natural habitat. You usually show up once a month during the regular season, but now it seems like you're going to be able to be a little bit more present during the off-season, which is great. And this is your thing. This is your type of building thing, so we get to get a little bit more insight from you, and then you don't have guys like me and Frank yapping as much. Either way, Andrew, welcome back. Plenty of changes that need to be made, obviously. Plenty of things we're going to talk this offseason that either it makes people uncomfortable, or it's going to be more of thinking outside the box in other directions that they can go going forward for this team into 2026. But we're going to keep things internal, obviously, for these next few weeks because, free agency hasn't started yet. But welcome back. I've already been rambling for at least, 2 minutes now, so I'll swing it over to you. But welcome back, Andrew, everybody in the chat. Please back as a somewhat more of a regular now. So, yeah. Buddy.
Yeah, again, I'm not really a big fan of the real baseball. I'm more of the hypothetical roster building. That's more fun. Or also, maybe I just got a new job, and now it's a lot easier for me to show up. Play it however you mean. But again, we could be talking about a team that could have been playing baseball today. But no, that New York team didn't have enough fight, and just kind of keeping the trend of New York teams not having enough fight. But besides the point. But again, you root what you sow, and we saw some, at least front office and managerial and coaching staffs moved already, so we're already getting some movement, and I expect maybe not the greatest, biggest names to be added, but I do think this is going to be a pretty active offseason, especially adding the fact that we have a pending lockout after next season, so we'll see where and how aggressive David Stearns and Steve Cohen are this offseason.
Yeah, we'll see if that has to do with the short term or the long term. You have some guys locked down going into, plenty of seasons going ahead. But, there's definitely not as many options of where they can be expendable on this roster. So they're going to have to be either careful or cautious or figure out ways to be creative to make changes to this roster that are really, really needed in order for them to not be repeat offenders of this year. And that's basically what the goal is going to be. We can sit here and wallow that the Mets aren't in the postseason, but I'm all out of the wallowing and then the feeling sorry for ourselves. I mean, we said at this point they got exactly what they deserved. This is what they did. They played like garbage for a majority of the season. couldn't get into the playoffs in the last game of the season, had an excruciating collapse throughout months and months and just a slow, painful death that we all had to watch as fans, and we're ready to just move on. As we turn the page, as we are seeing here in the title of this episode. So I referenced the title. That's crazy, right? That's
great
cool.
Start. Great
Anyways, plenty to talk about here going into this offseason. Obviously, internally, like we said, we're going to talk about that more over these next few episodes. We'll talk about some of the external stuff if anybody has those types of questions. But again, it's more of just what is happening inside of this team because there's not really many moves you can make externally at this current moment. And then also the fact that there is plenty of things that do need to be addressed internally with this team. And that starts obviously with the first order of business that they already got done in these last few days of this last week, and that being resetting the coaching staff and completely clearing it out. Now, I went live with one of my good buddies, Evan from Mets Central. We talked about, them letting go of the coaching staff and basically, for a majority, ripping into Eric Chavez mainly. But we've talked about these coaches many times before of how poorly coached this team looked all season long. And for those of you who missed every single thing that happened with this coaching staff, let's give a little bit of a recap of what has gone on and what has transpired over these last few days. Now, here is a little bit of a rundown as the Mets do part ways with multiple coaches after a very disappointing 2025 season, as we all expected there to be changed. Not returning for this team will be pitching coach Jeremy Hefner, which seemed to be a little bit of a surprise, but it ended up happening. Mike Sarbaugh, the third base coach, will not be coming back either. Co-hitting coaches Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes will not be coming back. And John Gibbons resigned, and he will not be coming back. He was the bench coach. And then Glenn Sherlock, who is not the bench coach, but that's a typo on the screen. He was their catching instructor. He is retiring from coaching. Who will be returning, whether people like it or not? Carlos Mendoza will be back for 2026. Anton Richardson, the first base coach, who did a phenomenal job with base stealing and overall base running for this team, past the first base line because on the third base side, Sarbaugh was not great. Danny Barnes, the strategy coach, he will be returning as well. Rafael Hernandez, a coaching assistant, he will be returning. Desi Drusel and Jose Rosado, bullpen coach and assistant pitching coach, they are not specifically staying, but they have been granted permission to interview for other jobs, which mainly means that they're willing to let go and likely they will not be returning, but you do never know. Obviously, Desi was brought over from the New York Yankees, somebody that Carlos Mendoza was familiar with. So they obviously cleaned out the coaching staff. We already did plenty of rants on Eric Chavez already and everything regarding him, obviously, but they obviously needed a change. And we've talked about this for multiple years now, for years on end on this show as well, along with, the fact of Jeremy Hefner and, the fact of Carlos Mendoza inheriting these coaches from the old regime. So, Andrew, your little input on this. Obviously, I don't want to spend forever on it because I already, went over it and went into depth. But we've talked about Jeremy Hefner a lot of, who has he made better? What's the track record here? And whether he was respected a lot in the clubhouse or he's liked a lot around baseball. The track record was either inconsistent or it was just very underwhelming, to be honest, in all totality of things for him being here for 6 years. I mean, 6 seasons he's been with this team, and it hasn't been that amazing of a tenure to, hang your hat on.
I mean, the fact that he was hired by Jared Porter, that's how long this guy's been in the organization, that's a problem. That, he's gone through Zach Scott, Jared Porter, obviously the Sandy, and now he's...
It may have been Brody Van Wagenen who hired him.
I thought I heard somebody say it was Porter. But again, besides long-ass, multiple regimes, let's just say it that way.
Absolutely.
This is not a guy that was, okay, he's just gotten the new organization. He's been here a long time. And, like, we saw obviously last year with guys like Mania and Severino, we're thinking, okay, maybe that's something that you can bank on. But then, yet you still see the same problems per out. Why is this team consistently always walking guys? Like, that's something that obviously hasn't changed. And you could change the rotation, the bullpen, and all that, but yet it's still the same problems. Yes, I do think Jeremy Hefner, he was the one of that mass, the mass cutting. That was the one where I was like, I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm shocked. But I was like, oh, they actually really went out and cleaned house. Obviously, hitting coach's perspective, they literally, I could just tell you, I think a literal marshmallow might be more effective than Eric Chavez. But again, that doesn't really say much. So those two with Barnes as well, not really shocking. Obviously, John Gibbons is like 90 years old and he can't even bend over now. He has his own ball-grabbing device. That's how lazy and old he is. So not surprising that he wants to retire or maybe look for another job or whatever. That's
what are you taking blank shots at him for? What
well, he's old. I'm not taking shots at Gibby. He's just old. That's what he is. He's old. He's breaking down. But again, Sherlock and the other guys, who really cares? And the third base coach, not surprised. Again, the fact that, again, you can look back at how many games down the stretch that, he doesn't send a guy, it's almost like that came back to bite him in the ass. So, but again, I'm happy with it that, again, letting Stearns pick his people. And then the fact that, obviously, this was kind of the fallback, and this is maybe the excuse he can give Mendoza, meaning Stearns for Mendoza. All right, last year worked. It was great. This year, obviously, horrific. Let me get my guys to make you try to look better. But also, we'll see, and then maybe this will be the next stream we talk about potential solutions. It's going to be very interesting for the solutions. The bench coach for me is the most interesting and kind of important. Because if, let's say, they go with, a guy who doesn't have any managerial experience, maybe there's more leash to Mendoza than we think. Or let's say they add a guy with a lot of managerial experience for that bench coach, maybe that'll tell the leash for Mendoza. But if we're just talking about the guys that have left, I think it was much needed. Get some fresh voices. Let Stearns pick his guys. And hopefully, let's get guys who know how to win today's baseball and not, 1990s and early 2000s baseball. It's adapt or die, and the Mets have not been able to adapt. And that's the reason that, most of the years they end up dying or choking.
Yeah, it's more the inconsistency. Like we have said, we really just want to see a sustainable winner at the end of the day, and it's been basically just every other season has been productive, but also a really hard road to get there. We want to be more of a team that has somewhat of a foundation to the fact that we can just, bank on the fact that we are a playoff contender every year, because sometimes when you see, on paper this team should be in the playoffs, but from the product on the field that we were seeing, it didn't look like a playoff contender for a majority of this season. And I think everybody can agree with that, whether, they were as many games over 500 or not at any point of the season. I think that one of the main reasons as to why Mike Sarbaugh was let go was not really because of his third base coaching. I think it was more of the defensive positioning, because he had a lot more of the defensive strategy and a lot of the, he also was also in, his responsibility was more of the defensive positioning and a lot of things. And, we saw it directly from the horse's mouth there from Stearns, where he said he analyzed, the run prevention was not good all year, whether it was from the defensive side or from the pitching side. And a lot of that could, fall on Mike Sarbaugh. But it seems like every single one of these moves that they made to this coaching staff, I feel like I'm okay. I'm all good with. I don't know how I feel about Danny Barnes staying as the strategy coach, because, again, if we're talking about strategy, was not a great start. Wasn't a great thought process throughout the year for this team. So I'm just saying that the fact of the reasoning for some of these guys being let go, again, Jeremy Hefner, we've talked about it for years. It didn't seem like he was such a big, valuable asset to where he was completely untouchable. And it seemed like he was untouchable for 6 straight seasons, and it didn't make really any sense as to why we were seeing things like this. Stevie Mack saying, what strategy? Exactly. That's what I mean. I was like, maybe cut this loose as well, but I guess he's going to be staying on. Whatever. We'll see what happens there. And to be honest, I also think that this, again, firing the coaching staff, this is the wake-up call that, we're going one more year with this. We're going to go one more year with this with either the core or these main players, even though they don't really have much of a choice with guys like Lindor and Soto locked down. But, they're going to try and, aim to run this back again. And they're not going to hold probably not going to hold many accountable on the player side. But if it fails again, that's probably where we're going to have to start asking some really, really tough questions. But I'm willing to ask those tough questions right now. I really am. Because we've seen this core, like we have said, 4 times out of the last 5 years, completely collapse and just be nowhere to be found. When it matters, and more at the hands of certain players that have been leading the team since the Cohen era began. And I'm not going to sit here and completely point fingers because there's plenty of things that need to be addressed. But if they're willing to give this another year with this core, whether that means bringing back that first baseman who's on the market once again, I don't know. But if that does mean so, I am glad they're doing it with a new coaching staff that David Stearns brings in by himself. That's all I'm happy for. We already got into everything with Eric Chavez. So long, good riddance. I'm done, and hopefully I never mutter those words ever again. That name ever again. I'm done. As for some other news, we also see Andy Green, one of their presidents of player development. He will be staying after he rejected multiple managerial jobs. He was obviously the manager for the Padres years ago, ended up not being great. I don't know why they held on to him so long because he just was not good in that position. But out of the very few executives and guys at the Mets brass, Andy Green was one of the few that had a really, really good year. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, I'm surprised. He definitely had a really, really good year at the helm when you're talking about player development, because the Mets minor league system was fantastic this year. It really was. You did not have a single showing of unperformance or guys that were dropping or whatever. I mean, you had from top to bottom some really, really good performances, and that started along with, the pitching prospects, the Tong, McLean, even Sproat started to pick it up at the end of the year. You also had Carson Benj step up, Jet Williams have a good bounce back from his injury-riddled year that he had. I mean, you had quite a exciting year from the farm system, and that's definitely encouraging for the future of this team. But it's more about just meeting it in the middle from when this is now to the next few years. What are they going to do at this current moment? We have a few rumors that have been coming through. We'll get into some trade rumors later on. But again, this reset had to happen with this coaching staff. And if they're going to, run this thing back and try and do this again, it has to be with a new coaching staff and with a different message that is being sent. Because the message that was being sent last year was no accountability and basically just enabling inconsistency, which is not okay. It isn't okay. Either way, as for the rest of this, one more thing on the coaching staff. Elvin in the chat saying Stearns and Mendoza are on the hot seat next season. Very possible. Very, very possible. ACJ saying that Mendoza should have been fired as well. Listen, if people thought that should have happened, that's fine. If you think that Carlos Mendoza should have been fired, that is fine, because he did not have a good year as the Mets manager this year. No one's going to deny that. But I did not see him getting fired in any possible way this year. That's just how I felt. I didn't think he was going to be let go, because I feel like we were looking at a constant cycle where we see a manager 2 seasons, we hate his gut, fired, then you bring in another guy that you can hate his guts in the next 2 years, and then you get these obviously these replacement these replacement requests obviously on the coaching staff or the managerial staff that also don't really provide as much of a solution. But again, he definitely will be looked at as close. He will be coming back for the 26 season. He is going to be the Mets manager, but that is also the last year of his contract. So I'm just saying, if they end up moving on from Carlos Mendoza, it will be after the 2026 season. If it's not going well, he's on a usual friendly deal compared to what you usually see with managers. Are usually 4 or 5 year deals. This year is this one is a 3-year deal, so that would be his 3rd season. That's the final year of his contract. So if he's the main problem, which I don't think he is, then that question will be answered. There's plenty of questions to be asked about this core within the organization internally next season as well, especially when you see them firing these coaches. Now, as for the replacements, I don't want to get into them completely, but we're seeing rumors about, Manny Ramirez wanting to be a hitting coach, which I'm not gonna completely go lost in the sauce of that. I know a lot of people see Manny Ramirez, they're like, oh, well, he was a good hitter, he could be a good hitting coach. Not usually how that works. I don't think that they're going to end up doing it. I think that the replacements are going to end up being internal. They're going to end up being internal. I think whether you're talking about either bench coach or hitting coach, JP Arencibia is definitely in consideration. He is in AAA, who's done a very, very good job. And it seems like, a message has been sent. We've talked about JP a little bit on this show as well. But, I mean, the mentions of Carlos Beltran, the mentions of Manny Ramirez, bring in Barry Bonds, dig up Pete Rose, like that's not going to happen. I would not be surprised. I really would not be surprised if they're put in consideration, but I don't see them doing that. There's other guys. Third base coach has been mentioned. I'm easy saying it right here in the chat. On cue, I was just going to bring it up. Ron Washington is available as he moved on from managing the Angels. Infield, third base coach, that could be a possibility. No, well, hey, you listen, you hear something every day. Hey, what can I say? I'm sorry, Evan. Pete Rose is not coming back. Manny Ramirez is probably not going to be here. Barry Bonds, all of these guys who are good players. Carlos Beltran, I don't see it happening. I'm sorry. I know that'll probably disappoint a lot of Mets fans because, they see it as good player can make good coach. That's not always the case. So we'll see what happens there. Andrew, there's been names that have been tossed around too. I've seen people talk about, I've seen people talk about things of, guys who can be just, presence in the clubhouse. I've seen Howard Johnson be mentioned before. Edgardo Alfonso's been mentioned before. Ray Ordonez has been mentioned before. But, I don't think they're really considered serious candidates, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. And we're kind of just going to talk about it as whoever they hire, they end up hiring. But these replacements are these types of replacements. We'll see. Mike Maddox as pitching coach is another guy out there.
He's like 90.
He was with
he was with
Texas, right?
Texas, Cardinals, Braves, been everywhere. I guess exactly. I guess again, we didn't want to go that deep and then we're talking about the candidates, but I'll say hitting coach wise, I think you're right. It's going to be some Aaron. If it's going to be a former player, it'll be an Aaron Sebia type. The bench coach is the only spot where I could see. And again, it's that one guy who could have been manager. And again, he's in the front office, and he's actually, and we've seen reports that he's actually had a higher ranking in the front office with Stearns than he did in the Epler regime. So again,
I don't think it happens.
I don't think it happens.
Yeah.
But I think that bench coach would be the only position you might see a name where oh, I know that
possibly.
Guy. But the hitting coach, I think an Aaron Sebia or one of these nerds that Stearns will hire, that's what I think is going to happen. And again, I'm fine with that. But again, like I talked about earlier, the hitting coach, the bench coach is going to be interesting because if they do hire a guy who has managerial experience, that tells me Mendoza maybe doesn't have the leash. Again, obviously his contract ends after next season. But if let's say throw a name again, I'm not saying this is an option. I just know he got recently fired. I'm just using this as an example. But let's say they hired Bruce Bochy as bench coach. That gives me the thought of, okay, there's a leash on Mendoza. It sure as hell ain't long. But if they go with, again, a Beltran, maybe that is have the year with Mendoza. We'll see at the end of the season. Maybe you could slide him back to the managerial position. That's all. That's my only thing with the coaching staff. Again, I don't really give a shit. I think me and you both have that. We want, obviously, the coaches to have good values, but this team is made with the players, and that's all that matters.
Yeah,
again,
absolutely.
Dave Roberts has been a consistent winner because he's been given the best damn roster ever.
True.
So again, it's more focus. Give me the guys. Give me the best roster, and then give me guys with good processes as the coaches, and that's fine.
It's not really, again, it's not really, a coaching makes a player, because these are professional players and they need to perform and need to be held accountable if they don't. It's more just about the message that's being sent. That's literally it. And that's really how it is. And that's basically how you talk about leadership. And it seemed like there was a little bit of a lack of leadership in that clubhouse, whether you were talking about the players this year or you were talking about the coaches. And, some fell on Mendoza as well. Like we saw Mendoza kind of pick his battles of who he was going to end up holding accountable. But Evan's saying dig up Mickey Mantle for hitting coach. That could be possible. I don't know. Maybe we could find a way. Listen, Elvin's saying Manny Ramirez is a 2-time World Series champion. How many batting titles has Manny Ramirez won? Again, that doesn't really factor into if he is a hitting coach, because again, the era of 90s and 2000s, we already did that with Eric Chavez. We already did that.
And I will say, because there is an obvious team that has had great elite hitter become their hitting coach, and now they have one of the best offenses in baseball, and that being Edgar Martinez. Again, think of some of the best teams in baseball. Can you even name the Dodgers hitting coach? Obviously, we know the Phillies won in Kevin Long. Do you know?
We know the Dodgers pitching coach because they kill a lot of pitchers.
Yeah,
Mark Pryor, right? Yeah.
Can you even Can you even name the Brewers hitting coach? Look at the best teams in baseball. Do you even know who their hitting coaches are? It's not always just get the big name. For me, it's all for me. I prefer that as the autograph guy. I'd love the coaching staff to be Beltran as bench coach, Delgado as hitting coach. I'd love that for autograph purposes. But I don't really care who the coaching staff is. It comes down to the roster construction. And again,
I can't with the mentality of it's just like the mentality of, oh, this guy was a Met, we got to stay with our own. Did we see how bad Mookie Wilson and Tim Tuffle did? It was bad. Come on, we can't just sit here and say it was, I think, exactly. Gonna miss Hefner giving out autographs instead of going out for mound visits. Yeah, I mean, he is a popular guy, so someone will snatch him up or somebody won't, and it will look a little awkward for the Mets.
He'll go to the Braves
for 6 years.
No, just go to the Braves.
Maybe he'll go to the Braves. Maybe he joins the powerhouse of the Mariners. They could use his help.
Dude, that's actually not a terrible idea.
M Easy saying Kevin Seitzer.
I have no
Seitzer,
idea.
Former hitting coach for the Braves, now in Seattle. He's made an impact. He definitely has. He 100% has, and he's turned that around, because Seattle was one of the worst offensive teams last year, and this year it seems to be a huge impact for that team. He definitely did a really good job with that big dumpathon behind the plate there.
And that guy in center field, he's pretty good too. But again,
the guy in center field did all right.
He did all right. But again, and Seitzer is point proven. But also again, they kind of did what the Mets did, but it actually worked. Where Edgar obviously has a big part is a hitting coach, but Seitzer is the main hitting coach. So you have that kind of what the Mets did, except they did it properly. Gotta love. But again, it's at this point. We wasted enough time on it. again,
Yeah,
we'll get
obviously.
to it, and we'll do.
Should have been done with this topic by minute 15. We're done.
Exactly.
We're
We're
done by
already
30.
half hour. We'll get you a segment before the end of the postseason. Maybe we'll throw some actual names and maybe do a list. But yeah, again, let's worry about the players. Coaching is they're just fat old dudes. Who really cares?
All right. Well, harsh words. Let's just say that. I don't know what the hell they ever did to you. But anyways, let's talk about some dudes who definitely, their voice definitely matters in the Mets, and that being David Stearns, who did a press conference last week debriefing 2025, making a lot of comments on different topics and things, individual players, the overview of the team. Obviously, they did not meet expectations. Definitely was a big, architect of this team, and a lot of stuff fell on him. Almost every addition did not go well for him this year. It was a disaster, 100% was. But facing it head on with the media the next day after the Mets were eliminated, let's get into some of the quotes that he actually had, and I'll try to paraphrase as much as I can and go through it as quickly as I can. But as for his raw reaction to the Mets missing the postseason, this is what he kind of opened with, saying, a tremendously disappointing season. I think we all know that. We came into this year with deservingly so high expectations, and we didn't come close to meeting them. I am keenly aware of that. I'm the architect of this team. I'm responsible for it. I understand how frustrated our fan base is and how frustrated everyone in this building is today, and we got to do better. I'm committed to moving forward and doing better. He also gave a little bit of an overview on how this Mets team looked on the field from all departments, saying from a roster construction perspective, on the run prevention side of the ball, we didn't do a good enough job of fortifying our team when we had injuries mid-season. Our defense wasn't good enough, and that certainly contributed to our pitching challenges. And then offensively, we had a number of players who had really good years individually, but we failed to score the runs we needed to score despite those really good years. He also was asked some questions about the future of Carlos Mendoza, which we just went over, saying Carlos is coming back next year. I believe Carlos has all the same traits and assets that I believed in when we hired him 2 years ago. And I think over this course of his tenure here, he demonstrated that he had a tough year. We had a tough year this year. There's no question. We're disappointed. We're all frustrated. Mendy as much of more than anyone else, but I still believe he is a very good manager, and I think that he's going to demonstrate that. Now, there also was some overall questions about the Mets roster construction and everything of them with position players, because obviously a point of emphasis is definitely going to be pitching, run prevention, which was definitely a big weakness for them this year. And he was asked about the future mix of Mets position players, of how they would form this overall team, and it may, factor into some of the free agents that they have or some of the guys that they do target offensively. But he did say I think we're going to have to focus on building a roster that fits together better. We're going to have to be open-minded on our position player grouping so that we can improve our run prevention. Does that mean there are robust changes? I don't know. Does that mean people will be playing different positions? Maybe. Does it mean we ask people to play different roles? Maybe. So again, opportunistic on those roles. Then we have as well, he was asked about, a debriefing of what happened, on the pitching side of things and for the 2025 trade deadline additions that he made. He said, clearly we made moves at the trade deadline, didn't work, in certain cases made us worse, and it didn't help us down the stretch. Every player we acquired was a true pro, worked their tails off, and they did everything in their power to help us, and in a couple of cases, it did not work. He was also asked about the trade deadline and his looking back on what he was thinking, not regretting, if he regrets not acquiring a starting pitcher at the deadline. He said, I think holistically, as we look at our pitching staff, we did need to do more over the course of the season. What we were faced with at the deadline, I think our fan base would actually be perhaps even more upset if we made some of those moves. He was also asked about his philosophy on acquiring pitching and how that looks moving forward. He said, "I think we have to be open to everything. My continued emphasis is going to do everything we need to support our development infrastructure and developing pitchers. Ultimately, that is where we are going to have sustained success and get in a consistent good spot from a run prevention perspective." He was also asked about the Mets core of players, which again, like we're gonna also talk about a lot during this offseason, saying we have a very good to elite core of players who at times play at a very high level, and a year ago had a very good season together. I think the ceilings remain very high. He was also asked about someone who we're going to talk about a little bit later on in this show, McNeil Senga. And this was one thing that definitely pointed out about, what would be the future here for him, asking about the current outlook of McNeil Senga, saying Kodai's had 2 very inconsistent, challenging years in a row. We know it's in there. We know there's potential. We're going to do everything we can to help get it out of him. But can we put him in ink as making 30 starts next year? I think that would be foolish. He was also asked about Jonah Tong, McLean, Sproat, their roles going forward. He said all 3 of those guys demonstrated that they can pitch at the major league level at various points. All 3 of them did fairly well at the major league level. We'll see what our roster looks like when we get to Port St. Lucie, but I would certainly expect all 3 to have a role in the majors at some point next year. Don't know exactly when. So those are some of the quotes that he had from that press conference. Plenty to unpack, obviously, of what's kind of standing out to you, Andrew. Obviously, we'll get into the McNeil Senga stuff a little bit later. But definitely some, I don't know if it was brutal honesty, but very direct. Very, very direct in that sense of saying, hey, we did not meet expectations whatsoever. It's on me. I'm taking the blame for it. I constructed a lot of the team. The trade deadline did not work out. And again, it's true. I mean, again, did Stearns have a rough year? He definitely did. But I do think that everything that we were seeing on the field throughout these entire 162 games, plus the coaching being letting go as well, I think that it's very easy to say that Stearns is definitely aware of the situation. If people want to call him incompetent, go ahead and do that. But he definitely is aware of the situation, and it's all really just about, what moves does he make to try and fill in those gaps that were shown this year in 2025.
Again, it's just the accountability perspective. Because again, you see you get most GMs speak like, well, we need to do better in this situation. No, he was open and honest in that whole press conference. He said, that's on me. I didn't give Carlos the best roster construction. I got to do better than that. Some of this, the ideas, and I love, you talked about it. The media didn't really give Mendoza they gave him the cookie cutter answers and questions, but they were like, the media were coming after Stearns, and he stood pat right again up there with him. So again, the accountability was great. But again, I think the main thing is obviously it's all talk until proven in the offseason. Can he change his ways? We've seen how he's been in Milwaukee and obviously the first 2 years of pitching. Is that going to change? He did talk about potentially, did he wait too long calling up the kids? Was he too proactive, saying, hey, was it that important to keep that 1 year of option? And say, hey, do we really, does a Justin Hageman start here really mean anything? Well, guess what? It came back to bite him. And he said, again, I was too slow on the trigger to say, you know what? Let's take the chance and let's get McLean up here, get Sproat up here, and waited too long. Again, it ended up costing him at the end. But he did what was best for the team, obviously trying to keep the team control for those young pitchers. But again, it's a wait-and-see approach with him. Because again, you can say it all you want, but if you continue to do the same actions with let's say going, not saying bargain bin shopping, but again, looking for cheaper option when there are better options. Let's say trading for a mid-level starter when a guy like Joe Ryan or Sandy Alcantara, because you don't want to give up the prospects. Again, he seems to be more open-minded, and we'll see. Again, from what he said, it was great, but again, it all has to be proven once we get the World Series wrapped up, we get into the offseason, then he could really put his money where his mouth is. But he does seem to at least say, I need to adjust to what I am, and maybe we always say, look, this isn't Milwaukee, David. You can't do what you did. Like, again, you can't do the little things that get away with in the Milwaukee market. This isn't Milwaukee anymore. And I think, hopefully, what he said, he realizes that. And, again, we'll see if he puts his money where his mouth is and say, all right, let's make those adjustments. Let's go get that pitcher. Maybe I don't love giving term to a starter, but at this point, this guy can help us win. Again, do I want to give 6 years to a pitcher? If you find that guy that he believes in, maybe he makes that change. And I think, again, it's all kind of a wait-and-see process.
I do think that there may be a little bit more of an impact on the trade market compared to free agency if you're talking about in the pitching department, and we will definitely talk about that when that does end up happening. But, he was definitely very straightforward here and saying, it's on me. I definitely was not as proactive as I should have been looking back. There were a lot of these instances where, obviously they came a game short of a playoff spot. So there could have been plenty of these instances where you're like, okay, you should have made this move when you didn't end up doing that move. And it ended up costing him at the end of the day. But, that's the main reason as to why I still have a little bit of this trust that David Stearns will eventually identify the problems and try in order to fix them. I feel like we did have, obviously, on the run prevention side of things, whether we're talking about this team defensively, on the pitching side, he definitely gave a big emphasis to that. And whether that ends up being the position players probably just being exactly what we have seen recently, because we knew that Soto and Lindor, likely Nimmo will be coming back. But again, we knew that, this team doesn't have as many pivotal guys. And we're going to get into some of those pieces that could be possibly on the move. But again, there's not many out there. And it's definitely going to be a little bit bleak as to what the options are going to be. Because MEZ says, is there a pitcher on the free agent market worth a 6-year deal? I don't think that there is one. And there probably isn't one. So they're definitely going to have to try and be creative. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, the Mets should have done that and give a 6-year deal to this guy. And, I'm upset that he ended up going to another team. Like, I'm not someone who wants to give those types of deals to those pitchers. So I feel like there should be a little bit more of a creative standpoint, and eventually there will be. But when you're talking about it from all perspectives, I think there's definitely a feel that he sees that this roster was not constructed the right way. And you had a little bit lack of flexibility, maybe a few little 2 DHs, maybe some limited guys who can only play certain little positions, and their liabilities everywhere else. I think we definitely point off to, guys like Mark Vientos, who was not very versatile, never has been seen as a versatile player. He was one of the worst, if not the worst, defensive third baseman in all of baseball this year. And also at the plate, had a down year compared to what he did last year. So we'll see how they do address this roster, and we're going to go where the reports obviously go. But, everybody seems to be in that certain position, aside from these guys who are locked down long-term, who you don't really have. Everybody is in that certain position where I think it's movable, and it's not the fact that they're irreplaceable. I don't think that they are. Obviously, there's some pieces on this team that you maybe would like to retain, but there's not many. There really isn't, because there's a lot of clean out that has to happen. And also, again, the philosophy, the message that has to be sent, it needs to be a lot different, and hopefully it doesn't end up being the situation that they had. going into this 2025 season where they completely underperformed. So we'll see what the deal is. But I don't know. I feel like if there is a more of an emphasis for them to say, well, we want to give the jobs to the kids. We want, McLean and Sproat and Tong. And when, Christian Scott ends up coming back, we want that to be a core of our rotation. Well, you got to show it, because there's going to be other guys in that rotation, other guys who are starting options who maybe you're going to have to consider moving. They're going to have to be proactive in that way. I am all for them staying internal with this pitching staff because they're young. They have a ceiling. Young pitching staffs can carry you pretty far. They can, because they have a lot of capacity. Is it a risk? Sure, but it's cost controllable as well. And I think that compared to the guys like David Peterson and Tyler McGill, who have come up recently that the Mets have developed recently, guys like McLean, Tong, and Sproat definitely have a higher ceiling than we expected compared to when they came into the league. So again, I am expecting them to maybe go on the veteran side of things. Maybe they trade for a frontline guy, but I'm hoping that they are either opportunistic or they go one way or another. I don't want to see, well, we got some of these reclamation projects here, but we also have these young guys if it doesn't work out. Like, that's basically just repeating what you did this year. Like, I don't want to see, oh, well, let's bring in another type of Frankie Montas and bring in another guy like this. I don't want to see that if they're saying, well, we also have McLean or Sproat or Tong if that were. No, give them the full leash if you're going to end up doing that. He said that he expects all three of them to have a role on the major league team. Again, like we said, Christian Scott is another guy who has been out all year, underwent Tommy John surgery last year, and he will be making a full recovery, so we'll see what happens there. But I'm more optimistic about the pitching going forward because, the young guys coming up, obviously. But there also is some other questions that need to be answered within this rotation of what are you going to do with a Minaya? What is the deal what you're going to do with Peterson? What are you going to keep up with Tyler McGill, who's going to be out all year? Are you going to non-tender him? Like, there's going to be some questions that'll have to be asked in this rotation if they want to give the reign to these young guys to get major league experience. And I think that's the question that has to be asked. But Andrew, if there's anything you want to ask to that, because obviously pitching is going to be a big emphasis. It is going to be a big emphasis in this offseason. It has been since David Stearns got here. This will be his third offseason. It will be once again. But we'll see where they go in this route, because there are some guys out there who maybe could be good value deals out there. But is there a prospect capital of the Mets right now being ranked the number one farm system? Are they more appealing as compared to last year where a lot of guys got hurt and their value was down? Is that something they look at? I'm hoping that they commit to something. Like these last 2 years, it's been very pivotal of, well, we have these guys externally, internally, this. I just want to see them go to one direction, like the band, I just want them to go one direction and stick with it. That's all I want. That's what all I want. And obviously things change with injuries, but it's like, you want to give the leash to the young guys? Give the leash to the young guys. No up and down from AAA, no waiting for them to get called up in July. Directly put them either in the opening day rotation or having them the first guy called up from Syracuse if there's an injury.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, and it's just because of the position. If this is position players, I think your way of looking at it is a lot more realistic. Because it's a pitcher, and the injuries, everyone getting injured, you kind of you have to kind of play this game of, well, you got to play who's got options. Okay, who's going to be the first guy up for injuries? Because I do not think Jonah Tong will be on the opening day, and should not be on the opening day.
No, he shouldn't be. No.
So I think Brandon Sproat can compete for the back end, but even I could see a world where he isn't because, which we'll get into later talking about the payroll, the Mets are bringing back 6 MLB starters next year, at least going into the offseason. So you're going to have a point of, you have Clay Holmes, who's guaranteed a spot in the rotation. You've got David Peterson, who's, Jekyll and Hyde. obviously Minaya and Senga, which we'll get to Senga later. There's 4.
Yeah.
McLean is the only one that I feel confident is guaranteed a spot in the rotation. So you're already
Correct.
sitting at 5. So you have to make a trade, again, what we'll talk about now. And then you're getting guys you can put as your depth as Christian Scott, your Brandon Sproat, your Jonah Tongs. That's your point. But yet you still need to kind of, and I know the ace has been continuing to be thrown around, you just need a guy that you can consistently get innings out of, and I think that's the bigger thing. So, and what we've talked about when you talk about the farm system, it's not just the upper farm has definitely improved. Like, you look at that next second tier of guys, the Jonathan Santucci's, your Jack Wettingers, your AJ Ewing, even those guys have gotten mainstream attention from prospects and Baseball America and farm systems have. So it's not just, the Carson Bench, the Jets, the Sproats, McLeans. Like, the Mets system is probably deeper than it's ever been, and that has been, obviously, since Stearns has come in. So you have a surplus, and you seem to maybe start seeing
and it
couple
goes
of
to show.
drafts.
It really does go to show with that prospect capital, like we're saying, that the Mets gave up like 9 assets in the minor league system at the trade deadline. It ended up being a fail, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like we've skipped a beat at all with any of those guys going. You know what I mean? Like right now, they're still considered a top 5 farm right now. That's how deep it's become. Like that's what I mean. Like there's resources there in the minor leagues that you can get excited about the future with the pitching staff on this team, whether you're talking about, the external on the free agent market or not. Like that's kind of how I see it. But continue.
But where I'm going with this is not free agent. See, and this is what Stearns, and this is what he did right in Milwaukee, the trade market.
Correct.
This is what he was good at in Milwaukee, was making trades. So now you have this surplus. You have this surplus of now great young talent. Turn it into proven big league talent. Again, I don't want Dylan Cease. I don't like, of the free agent pitch, there aren't those guys. We kind of have those in-house guys of 3s and 4s. It needs to be, I know you're higher on Joe Ryan. I prefer a guy like Sandy Alcantara. Maybe even potentially there's a Cy Young Award winner that potentially, going into his last year on a small market team, maybe that guy becomes available. That's a conversation that could be had in the offseason. But it's time, Freddie Peralta again on the Brewers that, Evan's bringing up. They're going to be guys that are front end arms. Pick one, use the surplus, because again, you can trade, even let's say, again, hypothetically, you can make a screwball trade, and you're not going to go, you're going to take a big chunk of your farm system, but this system right now is so deep that you can make that blockbuster trade. It's going to hurt, but give it another draft, give it another IFA, and you're looking at a replenishment of the farm. And again, slowly, and this is what I kind of like, which again, fans aren't going to say it, but slowly but surely, now you're starting to see kind of the Dodger and Brewer way with these waves of young talent that's come into the farm system since Stearns has, taken over and done drafts. So my point is, if you're going to add a pitcher, it's not going to be in the free agent market. Like if you want to sign a Trevor Williams-like guy for the bullpen, fine. Okay, whatever. If you want a long man that can go, 6th starter, 8th starter, you don't have to use a kid, fine. But I don't want any of these, 30-year-old pitchers that are on the market giving them 5-6 years. So it's time.
No, I don't think he
use
does
use that capital.
I don't think that's done in general.
Pick your guy.
Like, that's the thing. I don't think that's done in general. Like, I just don't think they're going to. Like, I don't think that's the mindset. Like, I think that the 30-year-old range. Like, I don't think that gets committed to these multiple years from a mindset of David Stearns. I'm not talking about guys.
Yeah, but if you're talking outside of this, then how many times have you seen these big? My only thing is of the free agent starters, and if it wasn't if these names. These are names that the Mets have been heavily, heavily linked to in the past.
Yes.
So that's why there's like a part of me is like, okay, he might do it, which I don't want him. Like, if you're going to add a front end guy, just give the prospects up. Like, I understand it's easy just to give it the cash.
Yeah.
And I'm always preferred cash over prospects because you can use those chips and other things to improve other roster foundation. But it does have that fear because the Mets the last couple years have been so interested in Dylan Cease. And over the last year with Michael King.
They've been linked to Sandy a lot.
And Sandy, that's a trade. That's different. That's a trade. That's I'm okay with. And Sandy has term, and it's 2 years at less than Frankie Montas money. Which again, give him whatever. So that's my only fear is like this of the free agent market. If it was a normal free agent market, I'd be fine with it. But the fact that the pitchers that are available have already been heavily linked for past years, there is that small fear in me that he might react and say, I know this is a bad thing, but we like the pitcher. Maybe there is that small amount of fear in me that, like, okay, 5 to 6 years to cease at 27. I'm not saying he's going to, but there is that like part of me because he's been so interested in the guy in the past. Again, I don't expect it, but again, as he said, everything's on the table. So again, that's the only thing where I'm like, I know Stearns wouldn't, but maybe this shell shock maybe does shake everything.
I think that there's consideration for it. But there's money that's going to have to be moved if he does it. Like, they're going to have to move money because even though we have unlimited funds and we have Steve Cohen money and we can just spend it no matter what, there still is some precedent in the fact. Now, more of the fact that, a lot of return on investment have come from loss from a lot of these signings they've done under Steve Cohen, and it definitely, it took a little bit of a chunk, obviously. He's made a lot of money on this team. Obviously, we know he's getting his casino and everything and all that stuff, but we're talking about it from, him being in the red and losing money in 2024 because of the attendance. The attendance was very high this year, so maybe there is more of a less reluctance to, go to that 380 that they ended up going with, re-signing Alonso. But we'll see, because right now, it's not as clear as it was last year. Nope. A lot of it has to do with the guy in right field who you signed. But again, there's going to have to be some guys that are internal right now that are signed by the Mets. They're going to have to make some moves. It doesn't make sense if you keep everybody that's on contract right now for the New York Mets going in, whether you're talking about it from arbitration-eligible guys that you may have to cut or guys that are on these veteran contracts that you may have to move. You have to consider a lot of it. And they might not just have to make one move. They might have to move two. Maybe they have to move a pitcher and a position player. We'll get into a possibility for both of those later on. But I do want to get into the outlook of this payroll and what we are looking at going into 2026. And, this may look a little overwhelming to some people when I pop it up on the screen, but I will break it down a little bit. It's more of a less abbreviated version of what you see on the screen on the right side of the screen of their tracker for the offseason. But here's what we're basically looking at this current moment. If it made you dizzy, it made you dizzy. Just try and focus in. Guaranteed contracts. Juan Soto is signed here for another 14 years, maybe another 4 years if he ends up opting out, which I don't think is going to end up happening. Yeah. Francisco Lindor. He's your shortstop. He's going to be here through 2032, 2031, something like that.
31, I think, yeah.
Sean Manaea is signed for another, that's a typo. Sean Manaea is signed for another 2 years.
Yeah.
He has deferred payments, obviously, $22 million a year,
deal?
roughly.
That scared the
no,
shit.
It's a 3-year deal.
It's
a 3-year deal. It's a typo. It's a typo. Brandon Nimmo. 8-year contract that he signed a few years ago. He is signed through 2030. Kodai Senga, $50 million a year, signed a 5-year deal a few years ago. Clay Holmes has another year plus a player option, so he is guaranteed that money if he takes it. We'll see what happens there. And then Jeff McNeil as well has one more year left on his contract with a club option. The deferred money, Bobby Bonilla through 2035. We all know that one. Adam Ottavino has some deferred payments as well, so a little piece of Adam Ottavino is always here. As we all know from the momentum, we love Adam Ottavino. Brett Saberhagen's also getting paid through 2028 as well on July 1st. You have some options as well that are pretty much kind of up in the air right now, but almost officially what we do expect a decent amount to be either picked up or exercised. Edwin Diaz has a player option worth over $18 million, which we don't know if he's rejecting or not yet. We haven't gotten a complete confirmation, but it's very possible that he does turn it down. Frankie Montas will likely take that player option just to sit on the bench for the entire year, being out for Tommy John surgery, so they're going to have to take the loss on that, but right now that is not considered. that is not considered right now in their payroll. AJ Minter as a player option hopefully is healthy next year. There's a club option for almost $5 million for Brooks Raley. Mets will likely pick that up after the great year that he had coming off of Tommy John surgery. And then you also have Drew Smith, who has a $2 million club option for 2026, which we don't even know if he picks up. We don't even know if Drew Smith is alive, to be honest. Arbitration eligible players, David Peterson in the final year of his arbitration 3, that he becomes a free agent after next season. Tyrone Taylor in ARB 3 as well. Tyler McGill, who is going to be out throughout the entire 2026 year, recovering from Tommy John surgery. He's in ARB 2. ARB 1 as well. Francisco Alvarez enters his ARB years as well. He's projected at about $2.4 million. You have ARB 3 as well for Luis Stearns. ARB 1 for Reed Garrett, Nick Madrigal, who I think they're just going to end up non-tenuring. He's in ARB 3 as well. Huskar Brazaban and Max Kranick. Max Kranick ended up undergoing elbow surgery, will likely miss the entirety of the 2026 season. He's in ARB 1. Huskar Brazaban still here. He's in ARB 1, even though he's 36 years old, which is hilarious. Pre-ARB players as well for the rest of the roster. Like we said, Brandon Sproat, Brett Beatty, Christian Scott, Danny Young is also still here. Danell Nunez, Dylan Ross, who technically is on their 40-man roster but didn't even pitch as yet. Jared Young, who most likely will be let go. Jonah Tong, Luis Angel Acuna, Mark Vientos, Nolan McLean, and Ronnie Mauricio. That's basically the rest of the 40-man roster at this current moment. So that's what you're looking at this current moment. But again, right now, you look at their active payroll, they're at $236 million. There's the CBA tax base, which is now $244 million. So they have about $7.5 million before they hit that CBA threshold. But you also have an additional $20 million that you have a little bit to play with before they start taxing into $20 million of a certain percentage. So again, right now they have about $27 million-ish to kind of work with before they hit the over the tax and over the they hit a tax bill that is plausible. So there's not really much to maneuver with, but there's definitely some flexibility as to where the Mets could maybe move some of these guys and maybe try and figure some things out. And there could be some movable pieces. There's not many, but there could be a few. We'll see what happens there. But there is going to be a decent amount of salaries that are just completely taken up by that $27 million per se before they go into the luxury tax already beforehand. So basically what we're saying here, looking at these books, and Andrew, someone's going to have to get moved of significance, like someone, not just for the positional aspect of it, but also the fact of, let's say you want to bring back Pete Alonso. Let's say you do. Like, someone's going to have to get moved for that roster flexibility. Like, it only makes sense for that to happen. And I know Steve Cohen's got endless funds, but you can't look at it from that direction because of the overall sustainability. So again, looking at this from a full-on outlook, Soto, Lindor, they're staying. There's no way to move those contracts. It's almost impossible.
What, you're telling me the Dodgers won't want Lindor?
Yeah. So what are your thoughts here looking at this? It's a lot different from a year ago where they had a lot of money coming off the books, significant guys that are coming off the books, likely, Starling Marte is one that has been mentioned. Again, it's not as very flexible as last year.
Yes and no. Again, we're looking at this strictly as just for this season. Obviously, this is just the outlook for the season. You look at, obviously, Sean Manaea's deal, it's a 3-year deal, and so now you're in year 2 of that deal, so again, after next season, you're out of that deal. And again, we'll look at, for me, we're going to talk about the 2 guys.
Yeah.
But there are 2 guys, and we talked about the starting rotation, that maybe need to be sold high on, and one's a lot easier, at least more expected than the other. We'll talk. Obviously, we'll get into Senga and McNeil in a minute, but let's look at the guy who, for some reason made the most starts for the Mets this year, and it's like Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes is only guaranteed, obviously $13 million next year. He's got a team option. Or player option. So pretty much he's going to opt out at age 33. Do you maybe try to sell high on this? And that's kind of the David Stearns market. And then we'll throw in David Peterson in this conversation, who's a pending UFA. Yeah. Does David Stearns does what he always did in Milwaukee and say, hey, he's got a high asset, let's sell out and try to get two controllable, preferably, as I call it, free pre-arb guys. Can you maybe trade Clay Holmes to a pitching needy team and maybe you get I'm throwing names and teams, obviously pitching is always needing, but like, let's say I'm using the Rangers. I don't know why obviously I know why I'm thinking of the Rangers. So let's just use the Rangers. They were Texas Rangers as an example.
We get it. You won your Super Bowl yesterday. Jesus Christ.
But here's the point. Texas Rangers. Like, let's say Jack Leiter. That's just pick a name. Pre-arb pitcher. And again, this is just just talking about, this is the ideology of what Stearns does. You look at a guy like Clay Holmes Peterson, maybe a team that's in win now mode. Let's trade a guy who's got more team control and is cheaper. That's maybe the way you can look at it. I mean, you pull that back up. Again, position players, you look at the money, you got three position players making money. So that's not a great look. I mean, on paper, that's a great look that you only really have three position players and a gerbil making actual money, where you have Beatty free. You would think, Mark Vientos would be a productive big. What do you laugh? Mark Vientos being
three position players and a gerbil. Yeah, everybody wants that. Fuck.
Obviously look at guys like Beatty, and you would think Vientos being a productive big leaguer for free. Then obviously you got Alvey would making nothing. His first year as RP going to make $2.5 million. You would think you'd be in a good spot, but again, also the problem, and then this is kind of the next core of that young wave of getting these free, cost controllable players to be a part of it. When you have two guys making close to $80 million, I mean, you're not going to be as financially free when you have your two best players making 80, and then you add, a potential sunken cost of Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas eating another close to, $45 million. Yeah. And then, obviously Senga, and then you go to Clay Holmes. I mean, this is the kind of problem with free agency, and again, we're going to talk about developing and whatever, but also being smart and using the trade market. Free agents, and it's different in other sports, and this is maybe for other sports, that you can use free agency to supplement your roster. Free agency shouldn't be your break safe, I have no other option, let's throw money at things. Yep. I think if you use free agency properly, I need a back-end starter. Okay, let's tack that. And we've been lucky as baseball fans.
And that's what I feel like is shown as appealing, kind of, with this rotation. What I was saying, it's like Manaea, Holmes, if you want to put Senga in there, David Peterson. Like, the Mets have a decent surplus of starting pitch, like back-end starting rotation guys who could be appealing to other teams. Unfortunately, guys like Manaea, and then there's also maybe not really Senga, but Manaea. There's a little bit of a cost that comes with that. You know what I mean? Which is the reason why I don't think that he is considered to get moved. But guys like Clay Holmes, like you said, like that could be in consideration. I don't know if it will be, but we'll see. Like, I don't know what direction they go in with that. Like we said, if they're going with the young guys to get major league innings, whether you're talking about McLean, Sproat, Tong maybe starts in AAA because he needs AAA innings, or, you're talking about, Christian Scott or whatever, like, they're going to have to make a move here. And I'm curious to see who that move is, even though we likely think that there's someone who maybe gets moved. Someone's got to go. Like, someone. Exactly. Like, whether you're talking about the pitching traffic of veterans, or you're talking about the spray of infielders that we have that makes absolutely no sense as to why, nobody has the everyday playing time. Someone's going to have to. Like, someone is going to have to get moved. And that's the only way that you can either consider bringing back Pete Alonso. If you're going to talk about bringing back Pete Alonso, if you want to keep him. Because David Stearns did say that he hopes to have him back. And they're going to make an effort, obviously. However, it also has to do with Are you going to move somebody for pitching as well? Whether you're talking about the free agent market or you're talking about trading and extending for one of these guys like Sandy or Joe Ryan, something like that. But I'm just saying you need flexibility that they don't really have right now. They're not bleeding for it. Like, they can still spend, but they do have one of these situations where it only makes sense for flexibility and financially for sustainability for them to make a move. And like we said, we'll get into McNeil and Senga in a little bit, but if there's anything you want to add on that, it's just the fact that they don't have that spend everything mentality that they could have had last year with all that money coming off the books. This year, they're going to have to be a little bit more creative. And like you said, with the trade market of using those assets, you know, you're going to have to see a little bit more action on that compared to last year where we saw Jose Siri get traded for, and that was it.
And I guess something you said, which I disagree with, I mean, in the sense of if it's Sandy or Joe Ryan, if it's Skubal or like Freddie Peralta, that's a different conversation.
I'm just saying. It's just I'm saying flexibility to do that.
But I'm saying this as you're not if you're trading for a guy again, Joe Ryan and Sandy kind of only fit this narrative because obviously Skubal, Freddie, all penny UFAs. You're not extending those guys yet. So meaning Skubal, not Skubal. Skubal you are extending, but that's not happening.
True.
But I'm saying Sandy or Joe Ryan, you're not doing with the Crochet because Crochet, the Red Sox extended him. They had the team control, and obviously he made a big deal at the deadline. They could have just they didn't have to extend Crochet right away. They could have just done what played the team years and then extend them. If you are trading for Joe Ryan, I think this is more a Joe Ryan specific conversation because I know a lot of fans want Joe Ryan because he's a very good pitcher, understandably, and that's kind of the only big younger ace available. I'm not extending him right away. I obviously have 2 years of team control.
Well, yeah, obviously.
I will see how this first year goes, and then we could talk extension. But I've seen so many people be like, oh, let's trade for Joe Ryan and extend him all the way. Why are you wasting more money that you don't have to? Like, I understand you want to keep him long term, and that would be, a great add to the rotation. But again, talking about when the financials, it doesn't financially make sense. If you're trading for a guy with term, you're trading for that term. Kind of like when the Padres traded for Soto. You knew you had him for 3 years. They were going to try to extend him when he was a free agent. That's the kind of conversation I need to have if you're trading for a controllable starter.
I'm just saying, pay them cheap while you have them at a cheap.
Okay, and that's what the team control is for. You're not getting him an extension. You're getting him team. If he's willing to take a Braves Crochet deal, fine. I'll by all means. But if I'm a pitcher, I am using my team control and getting the free agent market.
I get that, but it's more of just paying the pitchers early and not going out into the free agent market and giving a 6-year deal to Dylan Cease. You know what I mean? Like that's the main mindset that I feel like a lot of people have of well, give a 5-year deal to Corbin Burns, give a 5-year deal to Blake Snell, give this type of thing out. But I feel like it's more just the situation and context here. So like if you were to pay guys, if you were to pay them for their young, their young innings or whatever, when they don't have that type of mileage, and that they can provide a good amount of prime years for you going forward, locking them into cheaper deals compared to what they would get on the free agent market, it makes sense, obviously, and we've seen teams do that before, mainly with a lot of guys that have had the question marks. Crochet, we didn't know what he was going to do in a full year. Tyler Glasnow got the extension. That's just always something that happens with him. Like, I don't know what direction they go in with this pitching staff, but they're going to have to move somewhat of money to make room for something. Like they have to dump something, as well as if you want to give room for the young players. If you're talking about moving McNeil, or you're talking about moving Vientos, or moving this guy or that guy in that infield, there are guys they want to give playing to going forward, and that's the only way to do it. You can't just run things out while a guy is declining and their value is up or down. I just don't know if they're a feeling to move on, or is there just a feeling to be, well, we see this as depth and we're going to just keep doing this part-time player crap where they're going back and forth? And that's going to be the same thing with either you're talking about pitchers, whether they're healthy or available or not. And that goes for the same with the position players, which it seemed like we had a new third baseman every single day throughout the entire season this year. So again, I feel like there has to be someone who has to go, whether you're talking about it from, McNeil, Mauricio, Vientos, Beatty, do you move Lindor? No, I'm just saying it's like there's only one guy in that infield that's full on guaranteed to be back here, and that's Francisco Lindor. Everybody else should be up for grabs because, limited playing time for these guys is the reason why you had so much of this inconsistency as well. And whether it was the top performers or not, you can't keep continuing to play like this. So again, I'm interested to see what they do. But yeah, kinda, to be honest. He kinda was a headache this year. I'm not gonna lie. Like yeah, kinda. But we'll see. And again, you don't know what the flexibility is going to end up being. This is also a really, really good point of the Mets signing players, using deferments like Ohtani before the MLB eliminates that maybe next year in the next CBA negotiations. That could be something that happens, but I don't know if that's what we're looking at on the table, because I don't think that the Mets are going to pursue hard on the infield or outfield or position player market this year compared to what they did with Juan Soto. Like, I don't think that's going to end up doing, the thing.
With talking about the deferment stuff, it takes two to tango. Some guys just want their money now. Like,
True.
Ohtani can be a fake gambling, Fortnite playing guy. He makes money, he'd take a piss and he makes $10,000, $1 million. So he could take a fake MLB contract because he's getting paid everywhere else. It takes two guys it takes a player to say, you know what? I want to be financially responsible. I want some money now, but I want some, But you see how players are today. They want to buy, $1 billion cars, so they want all their money now. So it takes the right type of people.
Give me all that shit.
Give me all that cash. And that's rightfully so. You earned it. Give me to it now. Yeah. And then when you're a bum in California in 7 years, you burn it all. That's their problem. But the deferment, I know a lot of fans are like, just give everybody deferred money. Players, some players want it. Some people don't. They just want their money. And again, you can't be like, whoa, you have to do it. I'd love them to. You got to find the right people and the right players that actually want it.
Yeah.
Not just, sign the contract. You need deferred money. Like, we aren't the Braves. We can't just hold everybody hostage.
Thanks for doing that.
It's a paper. It's a finger. It ain't that bad. I could have pulled the real one out. It's on my desk. But
yeah, you can never do bad things with a finger. Anyways, one thing I do want to point out of this conversation. Let me just say, I'm seeing a lot of this. It's been a lot of saying that, one of the guys that needs to go is Brandon Nimmo.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to trade Brandon Nimmo. I see Brandon Nimmo as an untouchable piece to this team. I don't, because there have been facets where we're seeing him show his age a little bit, and it's starting to catch up to him a little bit. He's still been productive, but he has not been, to the level of the best that we have seen him. I still think that there's a few more years left in that bat. I think defensively, he's starting to taper off. I don't think he gets any better. But when it comes to Brandon Nimmo, overall, who is taking that contract? I kind of view him in the same pool right now as Francisco Lindor, not as a player, or as Juan Soto to an even higher extent. I see him in that boat as to where he is signed through 2030. Who is taking that contract? Like, voluntarily, who is taking that contract? This is Brandon Nimmo. He can't play center field that he was paid to do. He's playing left field that he has not played fantastic defense in. He also still has some concerns about his health as well. And he signed through 2030. As well, on top of it, he has a no trade clause. So, like, who's taking him? Who is taking Brandon Nimmo? Like, literally, who's going to take that Brandon Nimmo contract? I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, you can't trade Brandon Nimmo. He's the heart of this team. He's been a Met for life. But, like, it's a shitty contract situation right now. But who's taking it? Who's going to take it? Like, and I know we can troll and say, a team is stupid enough to take this, but, like, who in their right mind is saying, well, I'm going to absorb this entire contract of Brandon Nimmo? Because you're not going to be sitting here saying, well, for the next 5 years, I'm going to cover $6 million of this. Like, even with the guys that they retained, they were 1 years, 2 years. Robinson Cano, they tried to squeeze as much as they could out of that before they ended up buying him out for 2 years. So it just was not ending up, like we will be hoping of, well, I don't care what I have to pay, get him out of here. And I'm not saying that Nimmo's untouchable, but who is taking him? Who exactly is taking him? And Andrew, you're a big Nimmo fan. I'm a big Nimmo guy too, but 32 years old, like, who is taking that? Who exactly is going to be taking that, saying, well, in my right mind, I'm going to take 5 years of Brandon Nimmo guaranteed with a no trade clause? That's going to be a little bit difficult to do. Let's say if he had 2 years left on the contract, it'd make a little bit more sense. But 5 years, not everybody can be JT Miller,
I mean,
Evan and Matt, yeah,
high-end talent. Shut out by a friggin' AHL goalie, but okay, besides the point.
Yeah.
The only way, we said this is the same guy that we say, oh, Brandon Nimmo will be here in 5 years. This is the same guy that got poisoned by chicken. So, God forbid, I love the guy. He could just
He's got focus. He does.
He could fall out his tractor and blows out his ACL, and he never plays another game. Besides the point. There aren't many teams.
Yeah, which will make him even more impossible to trade.
Exactly. The only way is if you're literally Nolan Arenadoing him, where it's like you got 100 and how much is left? 102 million. How much is left on the deal?
There's a decent amount because again, it's up front.
Yeah.
What is it?
It was 162. It was
there's 5 years left. He's got 101.2 million left on that deal. For 5 years.
The only way that, again, and this is before he has the ability to just say, lol, no, you have to Arenado him, where, like, you're paying $60, $70 million as a deal to get him off the table.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way he's moving, and even if you get the team to say, yes, Nimmo can go.
And what team what team did that?
The Colorado Rockies.
The smartest organization. Very efficient Colorado Rockies, so they could end up signing an even worse player in Chris Bryant, who has also done wonders for them. So it's like the model of doing something like this for Brandon Nimmo, it's not great. It's just not great.
And
it's not like he's a complete liability and a bottom 5 player who's just been off the face of the earth as compared to Chris Bryant. He's still really good. He got a career high in home runs and runs batted in too, right? This year, I think.
Nimmo, yes.
Nimmo?
RBI.
Yeah, so it's not like he's not productive, but it's also the fact of, like, who's taking this? Who's going to take this? Like who's going to take that contract? Like, McNeil, there's lower term. Senga, there's lower term. We talked about Clay Holmes. Maybe even Manaea gets into that conversation for a second. Who's taking Brandon Nimmo's contract? He's in the same boat of almost nearly unmovable because of that contract.
You would need,
and the only guys to get mad at that is Billy Epler. Like, that's literally the only guy to get mad at, and what's done is done. Like that is basically how I look at it. And I love Nimmo. I hope he bounces back, because when he does play well, he helps his team a lot. But it's kind of just a shitty situation where we know he's going to age, but who's going to take him? That's the problem. Like, who's going to take him?
You would need all three of these things to perfectly line up. A desperate need for an outfielder, a dumb enough owner or a dumb enough GM to say, you know what, get him into a smaller market maybe, or a smaller ballpark, and maybe you get the offensive, output if you put him in a smaller ballpark. And again, Brandon Nimmo saying, sure, I'll get out of New York, even though he has said at every single microphone that you've put in front of him that he wants to be a Met for life, and he wants to be kind of the rare Met that plays his whole career. So, again, I have his game used jersey autographs sitting in my room. It's my main part of my man cave. But if Nim's got to go, again, he could pay the bill in Seattle. He could pay the bill for me in Cleveland. He can go pay the bill for me in Oakland, or Sacramento, or whatever. It's just not feasible. And I think obviously fans are going to want it, and fans should want it because again, he's literally turning into Mark Vientos speed-wise in the outfield. And what happened to the athletic 5'2" guy that we saw throughout his youth? He literally signed his contract and got fat. How'd that happen? He literally was athletic. He was an elite defensive center fielder. He signed the bag and he got fat. Sir, he was
plus center fielder. He's a plus center fielder for like 2 years.
He robbed that homer. He robbed.
Let's relax.
He was the king of robbing homers.
Let's relax. We've seen J.D. Davis make nice catches in the outfield before. All right, let's relax.
Oh boy.
I mean, autograph some good ass chicken. Anyways, so I don't know why I just read that off the chat so randomly.
This is the good. Dude,
that can hit it, man. It can hit.
Shit.
We'll see. I think that any addressing they do in the outfield is very obvious that it's going to be up the middle in center field.
And it needs to be right-handed.
I think that now of what we've seen in left field, now that he's going into a 33-year-old season, Nimmo's going to be pretty much planted into left field at this current moment. And with the arm he has at this point, he ain't going to right field. So, again, defense up the middle maybe will be another one of these priorities. Maybe, they give some of the young guys a shot. We know that there is one, top prospect who broke out this year through 3 levels, but we'll see what they do on that. But again, Nimmo and Soto locked down. Like that's it. They're locked down in the corners. Like there's not really much that you can do in that situation. Could maybe one of them be DHing in the next coming years? Maybe. Possibly. Who knows? But again, then you also have Mark Vientos that comes into the mix as well. So it's like anybody on the someone's going to have to get moved. Someone. In some way, they're going to have to get moved. We'll see. And we all know, whatever it may be. And yes, we have a DH option that ends up going on to the free agent market. We have 2, actually.
Are they really a DH?
We have 2. Well, they were seen as the platoon or whatever this year, and it kind of just blew up. Winker and Marte, both of them going on the free agent market. So maybe, does that open up something for Vientos? Does it open up for them to move Vientos and bring somebody else in? Who knows? But, we'll see how all of that does transpire. And yes, I am well aware of the deficiencies of Brandon Nimmo. I think again, the complaints are valid. They're not invalid at all. I'm going to tell you right now, the complaints aren't, because we are starting to see the beginning of his age start to get to him. I'm not going to lie. It's just not feasible. It isn't feasible to move him unless the Mets do something by complete surprise, and then you have a team taking on his money by some surprise. I just don't see that happening. And again, $20 million to an everyday center fielder, maybe he would be tradable right now, but he's not an everyday center fielder anymore. He isn't, like $20 million to a center fielder. That seems like a little bit of that seems like a little bit of a bargain, and maybe if he was a little bit younger. Maybe he's a little bit younger, but I'm just saying, it's like, where do they go in that situation? You know what I mean? Like it's very airtight, Like we said, there's not many expandable pieces on this roster to make it look a little bit more flexible. And 2 of those pieces that are expendable and may harvest some trade value to maybe make the team a little bit more balanced out or move some money, we're going to get into, finishing up some of the stuff on Nimmo. Ricardo saying, Carson, have you seen in left field? He's the worst arm. He hasn't, to be honest, if you're talking about arm strength, believe it or not, he has considerably an average arm strength, but it's in left field. It's in left field, but also he doesn't really have that low of a window either when you're talking about his softest tosses to his hardest tosses. So it's kind of in the same median. He's in the 48th percentile in arm strength. Never had a strong arm to begin with. I mean, I think as high he went was like 60 one year. But again, I'm well aware of the deficiencies of Brandon Nimmo. You just hope that bat can make up for a lot of it. Like that's it. And the worst defender usually goes into left field. So it's not like, we're doing that, but they're just going to have to kind of, flatten that out of it because someone's going to have to move. Yeah. Someone is going to have to move.
So, all right, let's talk about my two favorite players getting the hell off my roster.
Oh, okay. So Brett Beatty. No. Anyways, some more comments. Yeah. Coming in here. Valorant saying we need to eat a bit of the money and trade away Nimmo. He's going to be taking up a roster spot. He's going to get weaker and weaker, and I'd rather have Pete at DH than him. Also valid points, but I don't see Pete Alonso saying I'll be a DH. He's going to market himself as a first baseman. Not to mention with Nimmo, again, it's who's taking it. Like, again, we can complain all we want. Like, this is the same thing when we talk about Mendoza and, what's the solution here? Like, how are we going to do it? Is it feasible? Does it make sense? I just don't see it possibly happening. I don't. I'm sorry to people who want Nimmo to be gone. You're probably going to be disappointed this offseason. I'm just saying, if you believe that Nimmo is going to be moved, you're probably going to end up being disappointed.
Yeah.
Unless there is some kind of surprise move that I've been seeing people push for on Twitter for a Nimmo for Tatis type of contract swap, I wouldn't count on it. I would not count on that happening. Just saying.
Financially, that's the only. But again,
it does line up. But Tatis is also like what? 10 years younger than Nimmo. Like,
but again, even if Preller was like, deal, you know who can stop all this? Brandon Nimmo. He goes,
yep. That's what I mean. It's like, it's not a good situation here. Like, you have a lot of blocked things of, like we said, there's some guys on this team, there's very few that are expendable. Nimmo is probably not one of those guys.
And we've never seen in New York sports a captain or a captain-esque player deny a trade because of a no-trade clause and then turn into a big deal.
Okay, leave now. All right? You don't get the privilege of talking about two of your favorite players gone. Get out of here now. We get it. You shut us out yesterday. We got it. Anyways. Hey, shut up. All right. Senga and McNeil. Some rumors that have been floating around this past week about the Mets possibly cutting salary. Like we said, they don't need to do it, but it only makes sense for the flexibility and making changes to this roster. Jeff McNeil and Kodai Senga have been brought up. This was from Tim Britton in the New York Times a few days ago, and I want to read off what he did say about with the Mets' current situation, like we said with the payroll outlook, but about some potential outgoing trade pieces that the Mets could possibly trim for salary dumps or, clearing up some space or making room for other guys to get some playing time, all of these different types of scenarios. Two names that stick out as potential trade candidates, this is from Tim Britton, like I said, from the New York Times, are Kodai Senga and Jeff McNeil. Senga moves from a full no trade clause to a limited one this winter, in which he can block trades to 10 franchises. He is owed $28 million over the next 2 seasons with a conditional club option for $15 million in 2028, should he suffer an elbow injury. So that's that clause that he does have that he will get of that club option. Given the going rate for back-end starters in free agency, a Senga trade should be able to bring something back of value, which is definitely true. However, there are some question marks like we have talked about, and we will get into it as this offseason continues to go. McNeil, however, is owed $15.75 million this upcoming season, which I'm pretty sure goes to $12 million in luxury tax, with a club option for that same amount again in 2027 with a $2 million buyout. Here, the structure of his contract hurts his trade value, whereas McNeil only counts $12.5 million against the Mets for luxury tax purposes. He'd count for $15 million plus for any acquiring team. Coming off of a solid bounce-back season, McNeil should have some value on the trade market, but most of it will be about getting under that contract. Now, unlike Nimmo, the Mets could make it appealing to cover a little bit of Jeff McNeil's contract in that final year going into 2026. He also does have a club option, which could make it a little bit more appealing. You're not going to get a fantastic return here. You're not going to get a starting pitcher return that you could have got years ago, but you just had to pay this guy. I'm not bitter. None of us are bitter. But
I'm like, where are you going with? Okay, it took me a minute.
When it came to this situation, we've talked about McNeil getting moved for many, many years. Andrew, we have, I think, we're going into year 5 where we're like, okay, let's move on here. But besides the point, Jeff slander aside, McNeil, Senga's a lot more appealing in comparison to the two of them, but also you're taking on some risk with Senga too. He does have 2 years of control, but he's making back-end money. The question you have to ask is, will he actually be available for me? And also, will he be able to pitch every 5 days? Probably not. He'll probably need an extra day of rest or something. Like we've said, the accommodations that are made for Senga are a headache. So, given this situation, I would like to move on from both of them. I think you can agree with this too with me, because you've said with Kodai Senga in this situation, is it possible that both of them get traded? I don't know, but it does create a good amount of flexibility if you're talking about we want to keep Pete Alonso, or we want to go this different direction. We want to throw money at another bat, or we want to use these resources for something else, or maybe strengthen the bullpen, do something. That's going to have to come from somebody internally of shedding off that payroll. So I don't know. I think Senga's more likely to go, just because it seems a little bit more easier in that sense. But also Jeff McNeil in the infield sense of all these young infielders. Like, again, it's a situation that makes sense that they need to move on from. And Jeff McNeil in totality, 3 seasons in a row where, like since signing that contract, he has not been fantastic. I think we can all agree. But the value's there. He can play multiple positions. He can juggle. But I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know you're willing to move on from both of them. I know you are. I know you well enough that you're willing to move on. But these situations they're weird. They are weird, and they have pros and cons for either the team that's trading them or acquiring them.
I think of the two, I think Senga will be the guy I think you'll get a higher return for, because again, we talk about, and this is what drives fans and people, and mostly fans insane of markets. I mean, again, we look at guys like Frankie Montas and the rotation market for free agent pitching is, if you're a back end guy, you're getting $16-17 million.
Yeah.
Kodai Senga, as much as it's hard to see, has showed in his small sample size as a big leaguer, he showed some highs. that there can be a team out there that says, you know what? We saw a really good rookie season. We saw a really good season this year until the injury, which a GM and a front office say, hey, blame the second half off. He never got fully healthy. He's had a year and a half of pretty good proven track record, and obviously, he missed all of 2024. The price to acquire is cheap for positional value-wise, and pitching is always at a need. Again, we're talking about the Mets needing pitching. There are 29 other baseball teams, well, call it 27 other baseball teams who desperately need pitching that either can't develop it or don't have a surplus of it. So there are going to be teams, and again, unlike Brandon Nimmo, no trade clause. So if the Colorado Rockies come calling, get ready to throw the ghost moonball, because your ass is going to Colorado. Or like I said, in the promo we talked about with the ghost moonball.
The ghost moonball, what? Okay.
But like I,
sick, bro.
What I said in my, in the season superlative when I was cutting a promo on McNeil Senga, I think Baltimore makes a lot of sense. They've obviously their desperate need for pitching, and they have some position player surplus of prospects that maybe that could fit in. Everybody needs pitching, so I think of the two, I think the bigger return you can get potentially is in McNeil Senga. The McNeil point, it needs to at this point just needs to be a salary dump, and I know this is going to turn your brain, but the positional versatility of Brett Beatty makes Jeff McNeil obsolete on this roster. Like Jeff, the way that Brett went to play second base, and I'm not saying he's an elite defender.
No, you're right. You're right. Go ahead. You're right.
Like I'm not saying Brett is an elite defender, but he showed he's above average at second and he's really good at third. And I've even said because of his arm, I wouldn't mind seeing in spring training Brett Beatty outfield just like Jeff. Well, we throw Jeff McNeil in center field. I'm not saying put Brett Beatty in center field, but I'm saying hey. But in spring training, throw Brett in the outfield. See if that's another hitch in his tool belt of another position he could play. So, again, like I said, we talk about the financials. Brett Beatty's free. Jeff McNeil's making $12 million. So, to the point of his internal replacement is on the roster free. And then also, again, if you want to give Jet Williams or the young prospects, and if you still believe in a Ronnie Mauricio or Luis Angel Acuna, which if you believe in Luis Angel Acuna, I got a bridge to sell you. That dude sucks. But besides the point,
dude. God, you're just throwing shots at everyone. Well, man. Great to have you back. God.
Exactly. You miss me. You want everyone to be nice. No, I'm nice. Andrew's gone. You choked the playoff spot. Now I'm back to being me. But again, even if it's just salary dump, and even this is what we were talking about last night after the game. Yeah. A team really only has to acquire 1 year of $12 million. Yes, the club option is attached. But let's say it goes south and he has another 101 WRC plus type season. The team can just get out of it. So let's say you pay half down. 1 year, $6 million is what Jorge Polanco signed with the Seattle Mariners this past offseason. What Nick Madrigal get? Like 2.5? So you're telling me you can get a average starting second baseman with a little bit of defensive versatility for $6 million? That will have a market. And obviously then they can have the bonus of if he plays well, you can get him for a second year. So I think both for their market value of positions that they play, I think there is going to be interest. And obviously Jeff had a statistically a very good year, a bounce back year from the year before. I know we think that's just, it's just what he is. We don't like the style of hitter he is, and we think he's literally a raging baby, has a better emotional state than Jeff McNeil. But there will be interest. And hopefully you can just get somebody, we always talked about when he was good, Seattle would be a perfect opposition. But they have some young prospects, like that ship has sailed, but there'll be a team for a $6 million second baseman. There'll be interest. Again, I don't think the return will be great, but even again, just for your roster, because you have a conglomerate that you need to clear up, pick one and get rid of everybody else. He just needs to go just for your roster construction, and it is a very easy to acquire cost to get him out of here.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is something we've talked about for a long time about moving him. It's more of just the fact that just end this already. Just please end it. Expect better. And I think, to be honest, he did a much better job than I expected him to do this year. Willing to play center field, willing to play the outfield, even at a more advanced age compared to when he was doing it a lot younger. But you look at the value from all of these aspects, he's not a plus defender pretty much at any of these positions. Maybe he's mediocre at best for any of them. He didn't hit for any sort of contact last year. He didn't hit for any sort of power last year, maybe for a little bit of a power stretch, but nothing too crazy. The last, 300 plate appearances of the season, he was a below average hitter. And he's making, a decent amount of second base money to play multiple positions that gives him some of the value. There's pros and cons in both of these. With Kodai Senga, I think it's just more of getting out from under, maybe also a message being sent of the mentality that he kind of has, where I think this guy's soft. Like, Kodai Senga is just soft. I think we can all agree that he is, and it seems like in every situation he can't respond well to it, and he needs a lot of things to be perfect. And I'm sure he's a great guy. I think we all know, but again, in reality, in terms of the value he's getting in return for a guy like him, it's not worth another 2 years of dealing with. So I want to see them move on from Kodai Senga. I want Jeff McNeil to be moved on from, not just for the payroll situation, but also just more of the flexibility. And whether you're talking about Brett Beatty, and his flexibility, playing in the corners, if he ends up doing that in that utility role, I don't know. But he's played second base. He's played third base. That does provide value. Do I believe that they should also sell high on Brett Beatty? Because I'm still not really convinced. Absolutely. But then we will get to it, 3 years later in the same sense that we're talking about Jeff McNeil, where we're like, okay, end this already. Take the horse behind the barn and shoot it between the eyes already. But when it comes to Jeff McNeil right now, we have gone past the time since signing that contract. He has slashed 253, 326, 389. He has a 102 weighted runs created plus. He just hasn't been Jeff McNeil. Like, it just hasn't been the Jeff McNeil that we were seeing when he first came up here. And he's become this certain scene of delusion that any utility guy, any non-prospect will be fantastic because Jeff McNeil was great when he came up here. That doesn't always happen, and it's the main reason as to why Luke Ritter's not playing meaningful games for this team. So again, when it comes to Jeff McNeil, move on already. Please just end it. And if you want to give the leeway to the young infield, if you want to see Beatty play, if you want to see more of Mauricio, if you want to see more of Acuna, which I don't even know why you would want to, if you want to see Jet Williams make his debut.
His jet debut.
You've got the corners locked down, like we said, with Nimmo and Soto. They're not going anywhere. So where is Jeff's future? In center field when he turns 35? Like, there just doesn't seem to be much of a fit here going forward if you want to give the young guys, the more athletic guys, to kind of change the dynamic of this team. And that's where Jeff McNeil comes in. With Senga, like we said, more of a headache. Now, Jeff McNeil and Senga. Andrew, potential suitors for them. In certain needs, in certain situations, the best fits. This is where you put your GM hat on. Would you say that it's a team whether either take on salary or a team that's willing to split the salary? Or would you say that, anything is fine just to dump this salary and have this flexibility? Like, what would you say that mindset would be when you're talking about Senga or McNeil? Is it the same? Is it different? Like, targets there, like, how would they execute this? Because Mets fans aren't really used to core players getting traded. They're used to holding on to them until the end of time, until they break entirely, like David Wright did. So, or just seeing them leave in free agency and they get nothing back for them. So what would you say is how these assets are managed on these back end deals of this short term of dumping this money going into 2026.
I mean, this sounds like two potential videos upcoming to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel at some point in the offseason, but, I'll throw, a couple of, off the top of my head before I get in the trade machine and actually break it down from a fundamental standpoint. Again, like I say with Senga, like Baltimore seems like a perfect fit. Small market. They've brought in some Japanese pitchers, obviously Sugano. They've been, like Wei-Yin Chen was a big success story that, has played with all over Baltimore. So they've had a lot of these, KBO guys come over, and it fits well. It's small market, and a team desperately needing pitching. And Rubenstein has come into that front ownership group. He wants to spend money, but they have a GM dumber than a bag of dicks that thinks this is like, I just want to build a college team, and everyone's going to look the same, be the same, and I'm not touching the free agent market. So that could be the hindrance, but I think Baltimore is a kind of seamless fit that they need starting rotation depth. Obviously, they got Kyle Bradish back at some point. Grayson Rodriguez is never healthy, so like Baltimore's a fit. I think maybe even the Detroit Tigers in the same thing in the playoffs. Obviously, they look like they're going to be going to Game 5 against Seattle, but they're big on chaos pitching, so maybe that doesn't fit what Senga's main thing. I would like to keep him in the American League. I don't have a problem trading him. Like, again, the Cubs, another team that needs starting pitching. Matthew Boyd, depending UFA, or I think he has an option. I think Boyd is an option or a free agent.
Yeah,
I think he's a free agent. So Chicago, obviously, they have got Shota over there, so they've been very active in that market, and they need starting pitching. And again, that's kind of been their biggest bugaboo going against the Brewers, which again, the Brewers, just gonna fucking 1,000 paper cut you to death, even though Jackson Churro is a dog. They are always going to need pitching. I could make the joke of the Cardinals. And again, think of anyone. Jackson, my guy. What? I can't shout out players. God forbid. I like
you
other
just
teams.
you just running away. It's like, oh yeah, well the Brewers, but this guy is
a dog. Man. I don't
where
like
did
the
this go? Where did we go?
We're talking about baseball teams and thinking teams that need pitching. So
Yeah.
So again, McNeil's a weirder case because second baseman isn't a premium position. Like, again, we always said the obvious from Seattle.
Yeah.
We'll see what they do with Jorge Polanco, but yet they have Cole Young and they have Colt Emerson coming. They still have J.P. Crawford on the roster, so maybe a guy like Colt or Cole are going to play second, so that kind of takes them out of the sweepstakes. I mean, we make the joke about the Angels. They could always use, a batting champion second baseman. I mean, obviously, Andy Martino was talking about the Yankees. Jazz, probably not. Ryan McMahon, unless you want to move Jazz back to third because Ryan McMahon's fucking terrible. Like, maybe. Like, obviously, I'll break it down, and we'll do a video breaking it down. But there again, think of any teams that need pitching at second base. Second base is just that weird position that everyone's using cost-controllable guys. Look at the Red Sox, the Rays, obviously Brandon Lowe is besides the point. But, like, if you're not Ketel Marte, even the Rangers are trying to move Marcus Semien. And this is, like, again, a proven great second baseman. He's on the market. Potentially Ketel's on the market, which, we'll see what happens with that, drama.
Yeah.
We'll see if it's real or not. So, like, it's second base. Teams aren't looking to give premium money, which, of course, we did, to a second baseman. So, and the fact that you potentially have Ketel and obviously Semien's having a bad year, it's just the way the position is. It's a not valuable position. So, again, I like the Mariners, but if they're going with the youth movement, I'll always say that, but you're not getting Bryce Miller or Brian Wu.
I also like in this situation where you're kind of, because of the flexibility you could get from Jeff McNeil, who knows how long he's going to be able to play these positions, but when you're talking about he can play the infield, he can play the outfield, a utility role, would you more of go into a team? I feel like you'd address a team that has a lot of injury issues and needs a guy to fill in certain spots in emergency if they need. Like a team like Minnesota is a team like I'm seeing. It's like the Buxton injury, but he's not going to play center field. Like they have a lot of these teams that have a lot of guys who are injury prone and need guys to fill in and need guys to be on the depth chart, even though they have a primary position that they're playing. Like, Minnesota is a team that gets hurt a lot. Texas has been a team that has gotten hurt a lot. Like that's definitely a team that's been banged up as well. But like you said, they're even looking to move Semien, so I don't even think they're going to be in that second base market or whatever. Or could it just be a team that, needs a veteran infielder. I don't know. Like, I really don't know how they'd look at it. But if we're talking about strictly American League, like teams that have injuries, need guys to fill in these certain positions and give you flexibility as just one guy to deepen the depth chart, basically, is what I'm seeing. But that's quite an ask for $12 million, though, still. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, and even as we're talking, again, because you just threw this on me, I wasn't prepared for this. He could start in Kansas City right now in left field. Because they have, that is, if you want to make him a full-time outfield, and we've seen them do this last offseason with Jonathan India, I don't think you're getting, anything. I mean, and their farm system is horrific. Cags is kind of the only bright spot. I mean, they had like Blake Mitchell and Carter Jensen, but catchers. Like, I think that could be a situation because obviously they've got guys like India and Massey. They like that kind of utility. Even Michael Garcia could play second, play third, but he looked like he's solidified the left side with Junior. Like, I could see McNeil right now starting in left field with the Royals, and they're trying to be competitive, obviously. They were in the race until the middle of September when they fell apart because their offense is terrible. I don't think that Jeff McNeil is an upgrade over a guy like MJ Melendez, or they went out and added like Mike Yastrzemski just because they needed outfield corners. We'll see what happens with Cags and Vinny, and if Salvi's kind of the big question mark is if they decline Salvi's option, maybe that opens up Cags to be the DH or Vinny to be the DH, and then it opens up a corner spot because obviously they had Cags playing right field. So, Kansas City's always interested in them slap hitting grit grinders that
Yeah.
But again, you probably have to eat a little bit of money, even though KC's ownership has been a little more lenient with the money and giving some more for Piccolo to mess around with. So, I mean, Kansas City, I like, again, San Diego, another one, but again, we'll see with their ownership because, again, they have guys like Cronenworth that are losing.
This is another one that I want to put a spotlight on. M. Easy saying Robbie Ray as a trade piece in return for McNeil, which I don't think would be the return. It lines up, but again, I don't think that ends up being a return because, again, like frontline starting pitcher, a mid-rotation type of guy, that's not the value that is going to be in return for McNeil. But a team like the Giants,
that's not,
they don't have many left-handed bats. They don't.
It's what? Gilbert? It's about it. What?
They
Gilbert?
have Gilbert and
Jung-Hoo Lee.
They have Jung-Hoo Lee, who's been banged up, and then who's the kid they got? Ellich, right?
Oh,
Ellich,
bro, but he's a DH.
He's a DH though.
Yeah, he's not
like
playing.
So they don't have many left-handed bats. They obviously brought in the Devers contract, who's their big
another left
that as well.
Adames.
That would be
Chapman.
quite an expensive infield if you were to think.
I mean, like I said, that could again, but what could we steal? I mean, they have a decent farm, so I mean, maybe you can get maybe a controllable arm or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I would look a little bit in that bullpen. I'm not gonna lie.
Maybe we get Blade Tidwell back.
Maybe we can get Ryan Walker.
It's an interesting. That's not a terrible idea. I mean, it's funky. Do we need another funky delivery San Francisco Giant though?
Yeah, it didn't work the first time. Anyway,
didn't work the first time. Again,
but I think
there'll be a video about this.
We'll get more deep into this, obviously, but from a contractual standpoint, the Mets do need to move on from someone.
Yeah.
And again, whether you're talking about these tough situations or not, this goes even beyond the situation of, well, we want to bring back Alonso. It's more of the fact that the Mets don't really have as much wiggle room as people think that they do, just because Steve Cohen is a wealthy man. There's still like these implications that they want to stay under to keep these things sustainable and also, keep the pipeline going as well. So we'll see how they do bring things in as well. I mean, they added a lot last year because they had a lot of flexibility, a lot of money coming off the books, but we'll see how they go with that. And, we're going to go wherever they go. When this news ends up coming out, we're going to stay, internal for, a few episodes, obviously, before the World Series ends. And then we get into off-season talk, and then we'll talk a little bit more external as well. But again, this is the first of many here, and the off-season discussion is definitely going to be interesting after this underperformance that we had of them missing the postseason on the final day of the season. But either way, Andrew, I'll give you your final words, obviously. Mets can't really make any moves right now. But, eventually we'll get the first in a series of culture-changing moves. Anyways, Andrew, the world is our oyster. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Like it's hockey season. It's supposed to be winter time and fall time, but yet it's 85 degrees here. Sweating my balls off wearing this jersey. But again, off-season content. We'll pick a day, which we'll announce in the future. I don't know if you want to do it now, but we'll solidify a day. Videos. Again, I'm getting back in the lab. I've already planned out about 7 to 8 videos that could potentially be brought to the channel. Obviously, the TikTok game will be fun. We'll bring some content back. We're going to collab with people. We saw Evan. We saw, the guys in there from Met Central, till Mets do his part. They're going to be collabs. We're going to have fun. Rhino's going to probably at some point, join and hop on and stream occasionally. But again, it's going to be chaos, and it's kind of chaos that we needed. That, maybe this kick in the ass of embarrassment fixes the culture and it actually gets the culture-changing moves that this organization desperately needs.
Yeah, it's a arrow shirt, Evan. Okay, anyways. Either way, plenty of questions that need to be answered in this offseason. Some that may be a little bit uncomfortable for some people, but, again, this has been years and years of this stuff going on, so they're going to have to make some changes that, again, may go out of the comfort zone a little bit. But either way, plenty to come, obviously. We will let you guys know about the scheduling of the content throughout the off-season. Around next week, we will be going live once a week throughout the off-season. Usually it was twice a week during the season, but again, they're not playing games, so it will be once a week. We'll let you guys know, but it will not be on this day. We went live on Wednesday. But it likely will not be every single Wednesday. This is just kind of how the schedule lined up, and we're going to, figure things out as we go along. But plenty to come, obviously. Plenty of stuff that needs to be discussed, obviously. And hopefully we have a better result because of it. Is anything you wanted to add?
I mean, wait, so you're telling me I don't have to watch the Arizona Fall League? I thought we were going to do a reaction after the Fall League games. Because that starts today.
Oh, well, you can do that on your own. You can do that on your own terms. Either way,
yeah.
We just gonna keep stretching this out. Okay.
At this point,
thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel. Turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. Also, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. Follow all of us individually. And finally, let's go Mets. Enjoy the rest of the postseason as we sit here on the couch. We'll see you guys next time.